Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and today we have a great one for you. Today we're actually hearing stories from Robin Warman, who was referred to me from Preston Ward, Mountain Physio, someone who's been on the podcast before. But Preston let me know that Robin has some great stories, and he's a great storyteller, and Preston was absolutely correct. Today, we hear a lot of what is a very unique circumstance of as far as hunting experience. Robin is from England, lives in California. His wife's from South Africa, so he's actually done a bunch of kind of do-it-yourself South African hunting, which is not the norm. Normally you hear people going on guides. And granted, in his stories, he runs into guides, that's for sure. But it's still super unique, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I want to thank Robin again, of course, for jumping on the podcast. Couldn't have done it without him. And I hope you guys enjoy. Let's go ahead and let Robin tell you his stories. All right, Robin. Welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, brother. How you doing?
Hello. Good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man. I'm glad that you're here. I've been able to tell your excitement from the second we got connected. I haven't told you this, or I told you briefly, but you are, I think, the third person in a chain of recommendations, being like, you got to hear this guy. So far, Armando Martinez of the Bow Hitch, and then he said Preston Ward of Mountain Physio, and now you're here, Robin. And unbeknownst to you, you've already introduced me to someone else that's probably going to continue this chain. But a bunch of great storytellers, so I'm excited to have you here, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to try and convey some of that excitement.
Absolutely.
I think I realized maybe that's what Preston was realizing when I was talking to him. I was supposed to be talking, so a bit of context, Preston is a physio for bow hunters. But instead of talking about my injury, I think we spent about 75% of the time just talking about my hunting stories. So afterwards, he was like, you should.
Same. Yeah, he helped me out with an injury from this last elk season where I fell, compressed a disc in my back, pinched a nerve. But like I would always connect with him about getting some, physical therapy. But all we'd end up talking about is his hunting. And I was living vicariously since I couldn't hunt anymore. But we're getting off track right off the bat, Robin. Let's start this thing off right. Let's introduce you, who you are, to the folks that are listening to the podcast today.
Okay. Well, my name's Robin Warman. I'm a relatively new, some would say rookie here, I guess, bow hunter. I've been doing it for, I think, 4 years now, 4 years of bow hunting. I live in Northern California on the coast, just a small little farm, maybe a couple of miles north of Fort Bragg, which is funny because most people for some reason seem to have heard of that town, even though I'd never heard of it. I work as a writer, and that's kind of what brought me over to the US 7 years ago. And as sort of the freelance lifestyle has now enabled me to get out and get after some animals in these last 4 years, which is great. Yeah, I'm very
Let me ask you about your hunting. So you said 4 years. Is that when you started all hunting and you just immediately started with bow hunting? Or did you do some hunting beforehand?
I did do some hunting beforehand, yeah. That's a good question. I started hunting, well, apart from a very small amount of hunting in England, which I did, and that was like a light dabble. I guess my family weren't ever really hunters, so I wasn't exposed to it a great deal when I was young, which I'm always very jealous when a lot of people I meet who are hunters, they grew up hunting. Dad was a hunter, dad's dad was a hunter, and in the whole family, So that ability to just pass down information and that kind of like free access to just like how to hunt would have been very, very nice. But
I've said it on the podcast before, Robin, but like I hunt now to fill up that knowledge bucket to give it to my son. Like I know I'm never going to be Cameron Haynes. I'm fine being terrible at this, but hopefully I can make my son pretty good. Or my daughter, whoever wants to get out there. So it's all about, you're exactly right. It'd be super nice to have that. I didn't. And, I'm sorry that you didn't either, but hey, let's do it for the next generation, right?
No, exactly. So I guess from the beginning, I was kind of learning in the dark. What is it like, wandering around in the dark, trying to figure things out, mostly just scaring animals around. So
Yeah.
apart from a very small amount of hunting in England, which I don't know if you know about rules and regulations for firearms in England, notoriously strict. So all I really could get my hands on was an air rifle. and was like running around shooting rabbits and squirrels and the occasional pheasant, actually, which was great fun, great fun.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I think even the limit is in England is like 12 foot-pounds is the maximum for an air rifle.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
I know nothing about hunting in England. All I know is that when everyone compares it to like the North American model of conservation, I'm doing finger quotes, everyone. They say it doesn't compare, but I really don't know anything because it's never really been on my list of like, I got to go hunt in England. So,
well, I mean, it can be on your list of things to do. I'm sure if you meet someone who's got lots of land up in Scotland, in England, then that would be perfect for you. I'm sure we could, maybe I can try and find someone for you to talk to.
There we go.
But I think it's that old school, old money kind of system, right? Where it was actually illegal for the peasants to hunt big game. So as a result,
animals are owned by the king, correct?
Exactly.
They are not owned by the people like they are here.
And the king and all his wealthy friends. So that's kind of like continued on, I guess. So yeah, basically you, unless you kind of want to spend a lot of money and hunt deer up in the northern part of the country, you're not really going to have much access to stuff other than small game. You can do some shotgun hunting, often more in the West Country, things like that. Pheasant hunting is very popular.
Okay. So you didn't really dabble too much then. So like I know you said you moved to America, 7 years ago, 4 years ago, you started bow hunting. Like what was the catalyst that got you bow hunting? Cause like that's jumping straight into the deep end, Robin.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a good question. I'm trying to think about how to get to that in the simplest way. Probably a bit more information that you need to know. So the first big game hunt I did was actually in South Africa, which sounds incredibly privileged, and I'm aware that most likely is. But my wife is actually South African, and I met her in South Africa when I was doing a job for work. So it was only after being married for, I'd say, 5 years that hanging out with her family there, they happened to have like a farm way off in like the desert area in the middle of the country called the Karoo.
Okay.
In South Africa. And they invited me to go hunting with them, which are, amazing. Like you're not going to turn down. Having relatively little experience hunting, I mean, yeah, okay, I want to go hunting springbok in South Africa. Yeah, let's do that.
And did they say you have to use a bow, or is that just like your weapon?
So that actually wasn't with a bow. So
okay.
that was actually rifle hunting. And if I'm honest, it was actually very like farmer, down and dirty hunting. My family will hear it. What are you talking about? But basically, like I'll set the scene. We kind of arrived. It's quite a long way from Cape Town. It's maybe an 8-hour drive or more. Cape Town is the capital city in the, let me get this right, the southwest of the country. So like an 8-hour drive, long time, maybe 9-hour drive, 10-hour drive. Got there and we arrived, and my I guess stepbrother, or my wife's stepbrother, was there, 14 years old at the time, and he's excited look in his eye. His name's Stefan. He's like, hey, you want to go hunt some springbok? Like literally been there 5 minutes. We've just got there. I'm like, yeah, sure, right, why not? Let's go. So 10 minutes later, we're ripping along dirt roads, like dangerously fast. Stefan is driving, and has been driving apparently since he was like 5 years old. So he's like, it's fine. We're like ripping along at like 60 miles an hour. And I'm like hanging on for dear life with a rifle between my legs.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's not loaded. Suddenly we just screeched to a halt, and Stefan's like pointing furiously out the window across, saying that there, you need to shoot them, that kind of like only frenetic 14-year-old excited energy that you can get.
Yeah.
So at that moment I look across, and there's 2 springbok there, like looking, and their springbok are I'll try and describe what they're like. They are actually the national the national animal of South Africa.
Yeah.
And this amazing, lean, almost like deer size. They're probably biggest they get to is about 90 pounds. They've got this white stripe across the side of them, white and black stripe, one stripe. And they do this amazing pronking, if you ever take a moment, look up Springbok pronking. They do this amazing like jumping where they can jump like, I don't know, 15, 20 feet. Like there's like a mating kind of dance type thing, or when they're excited.
Huh.
Anyway.
Yeah, Google them. They look, for those out there, they look a little bit like an American antelope, like a pronghorn antelope. If it was like high fashion, it's like more streamlined. I don't know how else to put it.
No,
it's
that's
like
exactly
more
right.
Streamlined. The antlers aren't as like robust. They're more pointy, but like the whole animal is just more sleek than a pronghorn. But
it's like a Ferrari version of a pronghorn almost. But pronghorn is fast. But
yeah, I don't know who's fast. I'd put my money on the pronghorn being faster. But that's besides the point. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I like look out the window and look, 2 Springbok, amazing, cool. So I open the door to like get out, and Stefan just like shuts the door and shakes his head as he's looking at me, and he's like, just shoot out the window, man. Like, like, okay, this is not exactly what I had in mind in my like fairy tale image of what hunting big game animals is going to be. I'm like, okay, fine. Thankfully, the regulations are different in South Africa, and you can use suppressors. Like, no problem. So,
was the vehicle enclosed, or was it like an open roof Jeep?
It was closed. It was a truck. Sorry, I was going to use the word bucky because they use the word bucky in South Africa. So just like a regular white farm truck.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so slid the rifle out, and it's what is it, 22 250, I think they used. Like a very high velocity, low weight bullet, like a 50 grain bullet, but like shooting like 4,500 feet per second or something crazy. But anyway, I like line up the things, I don't know, 200 yards away. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm just like, put it, aim it at its body. And at this point, they haven't told me anything. They haven't told me like anything. It's like, they don't know where to shoot it or anything. I mean, think I may have done a bit of cautionary research beforehand. But anyway,
had you ever fired a gun before?
Let me think about answering that question. No, I don't think I think I may have shot some low power centerfire rifles back in England.
Okay.
Not really. Not. I'd say very little to no experience shooting a rifle. Okay. There was no moment beforehand of like, oh, let's go to the range and let's do some procedures. Let's do none of that. Anyway,
get in the car with the 14-year-old and go crazy
with the gun. Yeah. Exactly. So sling the gun out and take a shot, and bam, it makes a noise. It's like, yeah, you hit it. You shot it in the head. It gave me a look like, you've done this before, right? And I'm like, I mean, okay, cool. I just thought I'd like keep quiet about it because I didn't really want to make out like I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the beginning of I don't know, we were there for a week, maybe. We got the Springbok and chucked it in the truck and got back and showed up within 20 minutes of arriving with a Springbok in the back of the truck, which is very exciting.
I gotta ask, this is a very abnormal first hunting experience, right?
Oh,
so and it was so whirlwind and all that, but like death is a big part of hunting. We've all been there, and I've had this conversation with a lot of other guys on there. But like, because it was so like it was like an otherworldly experience there with that 14-year-old. Did you even have the time to like contemplate that you just killed something, or was it just like boom, boom, bang, bang, back to camp? Like, hey, everybody, we're here. Like,
yeah, it was definitely. No, I know exactly what you mean. There is definitely. Yeah. And I don't think this ever goes away. Like
yes, absolutely.
The act of taking an animal's life is always meaningful, and I think you feel that even more if it's like the first time you've shot something big. I mean, obviously you feel that with rabbits and other things as well, but like you got like a 70 pound kind of view. And I think if I remember correctly, I think it actually actually going deep into the memory banks now. I think it was actually like, I think I spined it just high up. And so it wasn't completely dead when we got to it. So that's always tough as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think at that point I didn't know much about firearms because Stefan, the consummate professional 14-year-old, done this for like since he got spat out from his mother's womb.
Yeah.
He like pulled his knife out and was like, let's get it. But like I think I was like, let's just shoot it in the head, let's just shoot it in the head.
Just spend it quick, yeah.
Expand it quickly. But what I didn't know is that that's like a very high power expanding bullet. So yeah, took that shot and there was nothing left of a
it was like a Quentin Tarantino movie where just
it was. I didn't know what was gonna be happening when I did that. So yeah, I think we managed to find one horn like 10 feet away, but that was it. There was nothing left.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's a beginner mistake. I've done some similar things in my first big game kill. I should have shot a second time. I had a 50 caliber muzzle loader, but it was on an elk. But I was just like, no, I'll just sit here and watch that animal die. I was like, this is awful. I hate this. But it didn't cross my mind because no one ever mentioned it to me to shoot again. So
no, absolutely.
You never know. Different experiences, man, but all still crazy. But continue. Sorry, Robin, I'm interrupting.
No, I totally get what you're saying. It's yeah. I mean, sometimes it's hard to like. It's easy to be hard on yourself as well, right? Like when you think back to those moments, you're like, oh, well, why didn't I do the obvious thing? But like the adrenaline's pumping, and you don't actually maybe have like experience, or no one's going to be like, oh, this is what you should do. So yeah, it's easy to make some strange choices.
Well, the best lessons are self-taught, right? So looking back on it, you're like, nope, wouldn't do that again. So
for sure.
Same for me.
That's a pretty good precursor to some stories I have coming up later anyway. Making weird choices in the moment, that's for sure. So definitely some stuff that I've done in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's such a whirlwind intro to all this. So I don't know if you want to continue any more about that first hunt in South Africa, or if you want to dive more into like what then brought you to archery.
Yeah, I think kind of in a nutshell, like that hunt was more of the same. I think there was a bit of walk and stalk hunting in South Africa of those springbok, but mostly it was driving around in the truck, getting a moment. And those springbok have amazing eyes. I'm sure it's the same with the speed goats. What are they called?
Pronghorn.
Pronghorn. I hate the term speed goat, but I still can't remember.
I was same thing. Like you said, you went springbok. You did a little bit of preliminary research. I went antelope hunting for the first time last year, and so I did my research. Turns out the pronghorn antelope aren't antelope like at all. They're actually goats. So speed goat is a better term than a pronghorn antelope because they're not related to antelope. They're actually a different species of goat. But either way, yeah. They have phenomenal eyesight. It's ridiculous. Like 2 miles away, they're looking at you.
Exactly. And it's the same with springbok. Exactly the same. So they see a farm truck coming, and they'll run. Unless they've got their very easily they'll have their wits about them. We see them running over a mile away. But sometimes they just like got their heads in the ground, and you get a chance and you can come up over a ridge or something and get them. So there was a lot of hunting like that, but also a bit of walk and stalk, and that really interested me. That seemed way more, I guess like my feeling kind of was like fair chase was a bit of a thing in my mind. Like, it's great fun, it's high octane, but yeah, like getting to a point where I'm like, I feel like getting on foot and kind of trying to like level the playing field is definitely something which feels like more of a rewarding challenge, if that makes sense.
Of course. No, I agree with that 100%. I switched to archery just because I didn't want to hunt in November in Colorado because I was so cold. But that's an absolutely legitimate reason, is like to increase the experience, right, of the actual hunt and not just go grocery shopping. So
exactly. And there's nothing wrong with hunting with a rifle, and I have done it, and we'll probably continue to do it at some point. But like, thankfully, at the moment, I have luxury of time, and there's strong desire to try and get better. So it just means like throwing myself into the bush and just trying to learn as much as I can is where I want to go with a bow. It seems to be the best way to do it. But so I guess to kind of answer your question in a very long-winded way, the reason why I got to using a bow was I guess I made a quick succession of events. Basically, I realized like, wow, hunting is fucking awesome. And I need to go back to America, which is like, oh, I've heard it's pretty good hunting back in America, despite the fact I've been there for like however many years and not done any. So then I kind of opened a whole can of worms, getting my hunting license and all that kind of procedure, learning how to do all that stuff. And I did get a rifle. I got a 308 and did some hunting with that, but also at the same time, just in a search, I think it was in a quest for more knowledge and like interactions and kind of opportunities to learn. I did my hunter certification, but then also did like, there's a bow hunter certification. And it just so happened that there happened to be one being held in my local town, which is very weird to me because there's nothing in my town. It's in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah. So that was a moment then where I didn't have a bow, but I like went and I got chatting to the guy that was holding the event, and then he told me about it, and then basically said like, I have a bow at home. Do you want to have a go with it? And that's what got me hooked. Basically, I went there, and he actually just ended up being two roads away, and shot his bow for a bit, and I was like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. And was he similar in size to you? I know that like you and I were big guys. Was it hard? Were you shooting it like 4 feet in front of your face, like no anchor points?
I mean, yeah, exactly. I had no frame of reference about like what correct procedure was at all. Yeah. So I mean, I would say Dennis. His name's Dennis MacGyver. He's a local guy. Shout out to Dennis. He's like 5'11" maybe. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like I'm 6'4" and I have ridiculous monkey arms. So like my draw length is 33 inches.
Oh wow, that is long, man. I'm like 32 and I'm 6'4".
Okay.
So like, yeah, that's a long draw. You're out of like most regular bows at that point, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess my first two bows were grossly too short for me. So only like the last 6 months I actually was like, okay, I need to just like pony up and buy one of these bows that will allow me to actually shoot a proper draw length. And the difference is so nice.
Yeah, I'm at the very top end of like most like longer. Like I have the RX-7 Ultra.
Okay.
So it goes to about 32, and I had the Parker Poison 32, which went to 32. So it was maxed out for me. But any longer, I'm sure there's ones out there, but
yeah,
that's crazy. I think you're the longest draw I've ever talked to. I think Derek Wolf, who says he's going to be on the podcast at some point. I don't know if you know who he is. Former Denver Bronco football player that killed a cougar in Colorado pretty recently and went crazy in the news. He's got like a 34-inch something draw. He's a monster.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, he's probably got the same limitations, maybe even more limitation. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to retrain my train of thought. Oh, so yeah, it was really through that got me into bow hunting. And I guess I jumped very quickly from rifle hunting to bow hunting for some reason, despite knowing nothing about hunting and making a bunch of mistakes all the time and being schooled by nature at every opportunity. Yeah. I decided I should do the really hard thing of trying to bow hunt. And really, that mostly just involved me taking my weapons for a walk around the woods for like a whole year.
Yep. And several years for me. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, exactly. So yeah, just the frustration of bumping things, but also probably not even having the opportunity to bump things. I don't think I was even good enough to bump something. I think it was walking away before I was even aware of it. Like I think I was at that kind of level. I mean, I had a couple of close calls, but yeah, I really didn't know what I was doing at that point. Okay. The only thing that did happen by the end of the first season was actually my first big game animal in the US, which was actually a black bear. So it's a bit of a jump as well. Like I do things all around the wrong way, I think. But yeah, I was hunting up in the north coast of California, and I had my bow, but I also had my rifle with me, which was lucky. I mean, at the time, I was like hedging my bets, like, I mean, who are you kidding? Yeah. At that point.
I've done the same thing. I think it was in Texas, and I was going for axis deer. And I was like, if there's an opportunity, I'm just going to bring every weapon I can. I want to use my bow, and that's why I'm carrying it with me. But realistically, I know in my head, my rifle is what I'm going to use if I see anything, because I don't want to miss the opportunity. So I've done the exact thing.
Now it gets to that last, like the time's ticking and the pressure's on, then yeah. And I mean, that's fine. That's fair enough. I don't actually do that anymore. But at that point, I think I was just like, oh, I need a backup anyway. And actually, it was lucky I took it because for some reason, I went through like a period of like breaking my bow so many times. Like, I think it was just not really knowing the equipment, not knowing what the parameters were or whatever. But for some reason, like the night before, like I drove all the way up. It was probably a 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive to this area. Found a spot that I thought was good, although really I didn't really know, but by accident, it turned out to be good. It was actually through no talent of my own. And I got to a spot that I thought was sweet. And I think I like drew my bow back and I was like, oh yeah, this looks like a great spot. And I think I like swung my arm around to see what I don't know what it was, like my range of like what area I could cover or something, not having any idea of understanding like if I should, like I talked the hell out of my bow at full draw and then pop, like this, to my absolute horror, the string popped off. And I've got no, like what am I doing? Like I didn't have any idea about how to get it back on. I mean, I didn't have a bow press or anything with me. So at that point then I was like, oh shit, okay, well, I've got a few more days here. So the next morning I went back to that area, which was like a very steep valley with like a river running through. And I just went up there and I don't know, probably got up at first light or before first light and made my way up the river and then just perched in that area. And I was waiting for a black-tailed deer to kind of come by because I had actually seen one run into that valley. And then a bear just like came along. Black bear, I don't know, 200-ish pounds, not a big one.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was kind of that moment where, actually, I'm not sure you kind of mentioned this before, but like it all happens so fast. And also if you're like new, you don't know exactly, nothing is intuitive because you have no prior experience. So you're like, oh, what should I do? Okay, that's a bear. And it is about 8 yards away from me right now.
No way.
And the thing that Toto knew that it was just trotting along, minding its own business, not worrying, didn't know I was there at all. And I hadn't even chambered around. So I guess I was being safe. I don't know. I chambered around very, trying to be quiet, but like how quiet can you be? The very distinct metallic noise of a 308 bullet going into a chamber is not going to be something that blends into the,
you hear that everywhere in the woods, right? It's just
exactly.
Every morning, as soon when the birds start chirping and then you start hearing that metal clanking. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I chambered around and that thing like immediately was like looked at me like I was, like my head was on fire. It was so obvious. But then it just ran up the hill, maybe 30 yards, and then just gave me a perfect quartering away shot. And that was a moment that I was just like, well, just gonna need to take a shot and see what happens,
Yeah.
And bam, it was a good shot. Like I think I maybe hit slightly forward, but if you shoot something,
the rifle, not a problem.
35 yards away with a 308 rifle, it's like, it rolled, it like went down and I was kind of like gave it a moment. I think I heard like it's funny in hindsight now, I know I heard like the bear death moan, the thing, which is like a specific thing with bears, right? I don't know if you've ever hunted bear.
No, I haven't. I've hunted bear, and I've gotten terrified hunting bear, and then not shot the bear, but I've not actually put one down yet. So it's on my list. I feel a lot more confident that I'll be able to get there, but that's on my bucket list. Is just to hear that death moan. I hear there's probably nothing more human-like than that. Yeah. So I think it's important for me personally to experience that. So
yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, I guess that was a bit of a big boy jump for the old mental challenge of like taking a life. I mean, having springbok being the first thing, but then jumping straight to like bear, which was like similar size to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a big shock. And also at this point, I don't think I'd even researched like, oh, what are you supposed to do? I mean, I think I'd like looked up some manuals about like how you're supposed to gut a deer and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure it's pretty similar to a springbok and all that kind of stuff. But like, oh, like a black bear, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I managed to like the thing went down super quick. So I was like, okay, I know where there's a spot with signal. So I like ran. I don't know, a mile and a half as fast as I could to like a spot where there was signal. Got like tried to like get some information about like, okay, the process for like, gutting a black bear and what you're supposed to do, all this kind of stuff, because I was like, oh, I don't know if I feel confident going into this without any knowledge. And yeah, I guess I just like winged it. I like went back, but then stupidly, I mean, this is like, again, not my proudest moment. Panic stations of a noob. I was like, it's like I took the guts out. What's that? Like 170 pounds? It's fine. I can just carry that out on my back.
Oh God.
Oh man. And so yeah, that was like one of the hardest physical efforts I think I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Because
How far back to your truck?
not too bad. Not too bad. Probably a mile, maybe a bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more. But the thing that complicated, that doesn't sound too bad, two things. One is that it was in, as I said before, a very steep valley. So this valley is like 50% grade, like, and probably, I want to say like 100, maybe a bit more than 100 feet. So not crazy high, but like when you've got to get something out, like,
Yeah.
like 100+ feet of elevation,
Yeah.
it's,
On a 90%, yeah, or a 90-degree angle. Like, no thanks.
oh, for sure. Yeah. Like, I guess it's like what is it? Like a 40, like a 45,
45
40,
degree.
like
Yeah.
a 45-degree angle, roughly. Um, and the thing's like 175 pounds. And it's not like all the other like springbok or other things like where they've got like a handy set of handles stuck to their head. You can pull the thing. It's like a floppy human shaped like
Yeah.
dead thing. Like,
God, dead weight too is so heavy. It's like
oh,
doubles it.
exactly. So heavy. So like the only saving grace of that was that I actually read my tag stuff and I did it all. And it said like what you have to do with bears in California is before rigor mortis sets in, you have to take a stick and put it in its mouth, because they like to, you have to give the skull to them. You have to give the skull to people like scientists who are going to like log the information. They want that data. So
Yeah.
basically, if you put a stick in there, when the rigor mortis sets in, it's easy for them to get in and take a tooth out. If you let it just clamp shut, then they get pissed off with you, apparently. So being good, I like was like, okay, I'm gonna find a stick. Thankfully, I chose like a strong stick because I put that stick in its mouth, and then that became my handle. And I managed to I like tied some paracord around it. And the only way, I mean, I carried it on my back along the flats, and then I got up like, I don't know, the first third of that hill, and I was just wrecked.
Yeah.
I mean, I was wrecked, like, but panicking because I'm like, oh no, I've shot this thing. It's covered in fur, so it's going to be even more like. I mean, that was the thing I read in the information. You need to get the skin off as quickly as possible, and like get it down, cool down,
Be
because it's
cool.
like
Yeah.
wearing a giant jumper or a sweater, I should say, for the American audience. So yeah, I think the only way I managed to get it up this slope was by like throwing the paracord around a tree, putting it around me, and using all of my weight whilst trying with one hand to pull the bear up like inches at a time, inches, like yard by yard, to get to the next tree, throw the rope around, pull it up. Oh, yeah, I was very, very tired at the end of that
I
procedure. But
bet. That says something about hunting, that like such a terrible experience and you went back and did it again, right? Like you continued hunting after like the hunting itself wasn't the hard part, but after that pack out, you're going for more. And that says something about how amazing hunting is. So I don't know if many non-hunters are listening to this, but I'm sure plenty of hunters are like, yeah, no, I get it. I've had some of the worst moments of my life right after harvesting a great animal, and they wouldn't change a thing about it, right? And I'm sure you wouldn't either.
Yeah, and it's like such a complex and like powerful series of emotions, like
Yeah.
it's like the joy of finally finding success, and then like the taking of a life, the panic at maybe like all being for naught, in
Yeah.
like, am I going to waste this meat, like all of that stuff, because also that's all compounded by a complete and utter lack of knowledge, so you don't really know like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going on. So it's definitely an intense experience, but like, I mean, I guess that's what makes it so interesting, and that's definitely
Yeah. Yeah.
why
Absolutely.
like, I got to do it again.
Yeah. I got to ask, did all the meat make it out? Like, with you not these, taking the skin off and all that. And I know it wasn't too far, but it still was probably a long pack out. Did all the meat survive?
Yeah, the meat survived. Yeah, it did. All of it survived. It was fine. I actually skinned it out once I got back to the truck. I had a tarp, and I put the tarp down,
Okay.
skinned it out, and then got it on ice reasonably quickly. I thought that I'd ruined it, at the time, but it's fine. And to be honest, like, it was the best meat. Like, bear meat is now my favorite. It's the best. It's so
Yeah.
good. And I think from what I've heard, it can really vary what they eat. If they're
Yeah.
if they're a trash can bear, then that's probably not going to be a very tasty bear. But
Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly, it was just at the end of like a very intense berry season. So I'm guessing it just eaten a ton.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what I've heard. I think Meat Eater, I'm sure you're familiar, Stephen Ranella, Meat Eater, all those guys. They tell a story about they were coastal bears, right? Coastal bears eat fish.
Yeah.
And he was up in Alaska, and he went, and this guy's smoker is out in his yard, and he's like, God, you got to clean that smoker. It reeks of salmon. He's like, I've never smoked a fish in that smoker before. That's all bear. Because when they eat nothing but fish, then they taste nothing like fish. And if you had one, like a bear that is from a berry season, is like the number one bear on my list, because I can't imagine that being more delicious. I also think I heard this on Meat Eater as well, that like, if you read a lot of old literature of the Western frontier, hunters would kill bears for the food. They'd kill deer for the hides. I actually have not had the pleasure of actually eating bear. I've had plenty of beers, but I haven't had any bear. Probably too many beers tonight, which is why I can't talk. But yeah, man, I heard it's awesome, and I can't wait till I finally put one down. I'm super excited to try it. So
yeah, for sure, man. I mean, yeah, I think I don't know what the rules are where you are, but definitely I think it gets easier with like baiting and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm in Texas, and where I am, there's no bears. It's like the one animal we have. We have springbok of all things, but we don't have bears down here in Texas. Well, maybe eastern, but I still do plenty of Colorado hunting, and there's like a complimentary, like if you get an elk tag, you can get the bear tag, and so someday, cool, while elk hunting, I'll run into a bear. So
yeah,
it'll happen.
It's bound to happen. It's bound to happen. Yeah.
I mean, I've had it happen. I just haven't figured it out. I haven't harvested the bear, but I've definitely run into him.
Oh yeah, I mean, it can happen real quick as well, right? And there's definitely a moment I've had black bears, and this is other stories which I won't necessarily go into now, but like, yeah, you like look over your shoulder and they're like 4 yards away from you, and just walking by, there's definitely a moment where you're like, oh, okay, do I want to start like running around with a weapon right now? Like, just I don't know. It gets a point where you're like, what? You don't really want to give this thing a surprise. It's probably gonna go badly.
That's exactly how I felt when I got up on that bear. So,
well, to be honest,
Robin.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think with black bear, at least in my experience, they tend to, like, touch wood. I'm going to say this now, I'm going to curse myself, but like, I've had quite a few encounters with them, and they tend to always just be more like cautious and scared when they see me, rather than.
Agreed.
Never had an experience with the grizz. Never been to grizz country, so hopefully that never happens.
I'm still building up the courage to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, black bears, they're just big fluffy dogs, basically. As long as you don't run into mama bear, it's not a problem. So
exactly.
But Robin, I know you got some other stories for us. I don't know if
I do. Yeah.
In particular you want to dive into. Otherwise, I'm excited to hear some of your South Africa hunts. I know you have some there, but you set the stage. Let us know what the next story is.
I do have a few more stories, and by all means, if it gets too late, then let me know. I will happily turn the tap off.
Well, keep going, man. Keep going.
Okay, so yeah, I think then actually it's kind of all kind of flows together, to be honest. So after the bear and after eating a great many delicious bear pies, was the next trip heading to South Africa to see family, my wife's family over there. And that was the first time that I actually took my bow over there. And that
Yeah,
was just fucking brilliant, you know, like
I bet.
it was great.
And how old's your brother-in-law now? I feel like that's important to the story.
Yeah, actually, sorry, is it my brother-in-law? I think it's my stepbrother. My wife always gives me shit because I always get these mixed up. He's my stepbrother.
Okay.
I should I should correct that now. Corrections corner. Let's go. But anyway, he's now 18 actually. Yeah. So
Okay.
but yeah, I was back, and this was I guess like 3 years ago. And at that point, I had my bow, and I tried to do some hunting in the Karoo again, where it's a very tough environment for bow hunting. Not impossible, but very tough. Like it's very open, kind of semi-desert environment. It's a lot of like sage brushy kind of stuff, very low, very kind of antelope kind of
Yeah.
terrain. From what I've seen, I've not been there, but I've seen numerous hunting videos, as I'm sure
Yeah.
we all have.
Is it as flat as antelope country typically is, or are there rolling hills?
There
Or?
are rolling hills. It's a lot of flat,
Okay.
but also rolling hills with some kind of like big kind of mountainy sections as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that can be very tough. Like, but you can make things work with like dry riverbeds and things like that. But that was very tough. But thankfully, my wife's mother's husband, whatever the term is, I think in Afrikaans,
Stepfather-in-law or
there you go,
something.
stepfather-in-law. There you go.
Yeah.
Um, in Afrikaans, they describe things, and they always do like the list of people's wives, mothers, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he is from that area and has a lot of friends with land and opportunities for that. So that was great. So I got to do a bunch of hunting there. Sadly, I had some real close calls. Like I got really close to some kudu and springbok and other animals, but couldn't quite close it. It's due to like inexperience, bad luck, all those things.
Yeah.
But he did introduce me to a friend who has a farm, a game farm on the east coast of South Africa called Taste van Niekerk, actually. And he was a really good person to meet because he shot archery for South Africa.
Oh,
But
wow. Okay.
also, yeah, so like knows his stuff,
Yeah.
but also is a bow hunter and owns like a giant game farm. So
Yeah, good person to know.
exactly. So he has a lot of bow hunters go there. So it was perfect. It was really good to like go there and learn from him. Stalking a bunch of animals, making a ton of mistakes. And I'm sure, we've all been there. We've all made a lot of mistakes. Like when you're new, it's hard. It's very easy to get like frustrated.
Yeah.
But I guess it's all part of the process. And I guess the thing that was really nice and really good for me about going, and I'm sure it's probably the same in Texas, is like having a lot of opportunities to mess up means that you can just make so many mistakes and learn from them so much quicker than if, say, for instance, like public land hunting in California.
Yeah.
In just, I would say like a few days of hunting in South Africa is more opportunities. Maybe I'd say probably one day in South Africa is more opportunities than I've had in public land in like 4 years in California. There's just so many less animals.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was great. Like chasing all kinds of animals around kudu, eland. I should probably explain. Kudu are kind of like elk. They're amazing. They are called, what are they called? The ghost. The grey ghost is what they call them. And they're these like amazing animals, 700 pounds, curling horns that kind of curl all the way back, pointing above my head. But yeah, probably 60-inch long horns and like these big majestic curls.
Yeah, they are cool. I'm Googling these things as you bring them up because I've heard kudu, and if I had to pick it out of a lineup, I'd say it's 50-50 chance I'd be able to do it right. But they're very cool. They've got like white stripe. They've got like a darker silverish, blackish fur, but like white stripes going down the back half. They're a super cool animal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're very cool. There's a lot of very, very cool animals there. So I got a lot of chances to mess up. Not a lot of chances for success, but I did get some success. I did successfully shoot a something called a Steenbok, which is spelled Steenbok, which is ironically, like, I was trying to stalk things like eland, which can be like 2,000 pounds. They're just basically like a giant wild cow. I think they're the biggest antelope in Africa.
Oh, wow.
But Steenbok are some of the smallest. So those things are like, yeah, like I think what they get to, how big? 26 pounds when they're fully grown.
That's it. I Googled it. That's the exact number that it tells you is the size for these Steenbok. They're cute little critters.
They're tiny. They're tiny. It's amazing. They're like, I think the turkey I shot like a week ago is big, way more than the Steenbok I shot. And the funny thing is that Steenbok, I mean, I managed to walk and stalk that Steenbok, like through the bushes, through the veld, they call it in South Africa. I think it was like a 30-yard shot. I managed to stalk on it and get a shot. They have crazy reactions. It turned, so it wasn't the perfect shot, but like it absolutely smashed it. And it went down. But it turned out that was actually like a trophy buck. And the funny thing is, like, its skull is like tiny. I would say its skull is probably 4 inches long. And the horns, which are trophy horns, are 3.5 inches long. I think it scores like a 9.5.
Like out of 10, or
no. Like, you know how you get like a
okay, so like measuring the inches of the horns, you put it together with
400
the gap.
elk or whatever, whatever ratings. Yeah, it's like, I think it scores like 9.5 or something ridiculous.
That's so funny, and that's a trophy.
Yeah, so that was hilarious.
Do you still have that, or like, are you able to bring that back from South Africa? I don't really know about like traveling with that kind of stuff.
There are rules. Yeah, there are rules. I didn't take it back the first year, but I did actually just bring it back now. I wish I could show you, but I actually just gave it to a friend who is a local who loves to collect skulls. Yeah. So I thought he would appreciate it. So yeah. So I don't have it, sadly, but so I managed to get that, and also went and hunted some wild boar as well. So I got a couple of pigs, which was great fun. So there was definitely some success and progress, which felt good. And then also the great thing was, as I mentioned before, Tace was like a really good mentor there. But when I shot that Steenbok, he, I called him because there was actually signal there, and he said, "Don't go anywhere, just wait. I'm going to come and I'm going to teach you how to track it." And he like went through the process of like teaching me how to look for blood, how to like examine the tracks very, very carefully, read like, okay, you could see like this is where it ran really hard, so it's scattered, and then you can see, okay, it's swaying, this is a good sign, and okay, it's going through this bush, which is a good sign. It means that you hit it well. It means it's definitely so the level of detail of like how to track was crazy. And like the time that he took to do it, because it actually turned out the thing was like 40 yards away, 50 yards away, but we took a good 15 minutes, 20 minutes stopping. It's like, never get ahead of yourself was the thing he taught. It's like, just be very patient, be very slow.
Yeah.
And so, so good. That's exactly what I wanted, right? I wanted to learn those skills, and they became very valuable actually later when I got my first black-tailed deer.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you've actually been able to like retain them and then use them. So go ahead. I'm getting ahead of you.
No, I mean, absolutely. It was absolute gold dust, that information. And it's funny, I think you're always like, at least for me, I speak for myself. I'm always like fearful when I learn things like, oh, I'm probably not going to remember this. I'm a bit of a scatterbrain. So yeah, it's like in one ear and out the other, as they say in England. So yeah, I'm always a bit fearful that I'm not going to remember stuff, but that went in, that stayed. So I got back from South Africa and then actually managed to squeeze in. I think I got back in September 2020, maybe. I think it was around then. And I was in another area of like public land, and I was working up another river. I just seemed to have good success working along riversides. And I saw a buck at, I think it was 37 yards. And the thing was, actually, I was taking my time. The wind wasn't perfect actually, but at that point, I'd always been so uptight with my kind of inexperience. I'd always been like, oh, the wind's no good. I think I'd always get frustrated and be annoyed almost like, oh, the wind keeps changing. I've got no chance. I think it's more like, I guess fundamentally like a fear of failure.
Yeah.
You know?
You're counting yourself out before you even like gave yourself the opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think at that point, maybe after getting a couple more animals on the ground and learning a few more things from the guys in South Africa, I was basically just like, okay, it's not perfect. I'm just going to go down this river anyway and just see how, see what happens. And a few hours later, I then find myself looking across the river at a black-tailed deer just looking at me over. There was a dead log fallen sideways, and it was like head was poking up over the top. Maybe I could see its like shoulder and like half of its vitals, but not the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so at that point, again,
how far roughly?
37,
like
37 yards, 40 yards.
Okay. Distance. It's called archery for a reason, right? You drop it in there.
Exactly. So that's kind of, I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? This thing's just looking at me. It's not going anywhere. It's like chewing. So yeah. I don't know what to do. I think I'm just going to drop a shot in. I think I'm just going to drop an arrow in there. And that was actually something Taste taught me, which is like walk and stalk hunting. It's never going to be perfect. Like you're going to have to figure it out. Like sometimes you just got to throw an arrow,
Absolutely.
Not in any way like be reckless, but I think you can be like hindered by like fear when you're starting, right?
Absolutely. I'll say that I shot a lot of like indoor, and you don't think about that. Like you just shoot, and I didn't really like it. I did it so I could be better at hunting, and then I started shooting 3D archery. And I remember the very first time there was a target. It was like 50 yards, and I couldn't see its body. And I was like, but I'm supposed to shoot from here. So that means like this is archery. Like let's just drop it in. And like I was like, all of a sudden I just had a moment like of clarity, being like, oh my goodness, I don't have to see the body of what I'm shooting. It's still gonna hit where So it's super cool when you get the opportunity to shoot like that. If you do archery and you haven't shot at some things that you can't fully see because the angle of how the arrow is going to be dropping in, you got to get out there and do it. So, but continue.
For sure. I totally agree with you. It's very cool. It's like, there's got to be some perk to shooting some very slow projectiles. There's got to be a benefit. If you can shoot over something, then that's got to be great, right? Like over line of sight. Then great. So that was kind of what I decided to do. And it was it would have been like a squeeze, I knew that I was going to have to clip just over this log in order to get it, because it wasn't far behind the log. So I took my time. Everything felt good, lined up. I'd been practicing a lot at that point, so I was very confident at that distance. And I drew back, took the shot, let the arrow fly, and then to my surprise, like crack, I hit the thing. I hit it, but there was an almighty crack sound.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't know what that meant. Now I'm sure. Shoulder blade. Loud noise. It was sort of like shocked, made me jump almost. But then the thing actually jumped up. And what I hadn't realized is it was actually laying down behind the log. I thought it was standing. So the trouble was, what that meant was that in the position that it was laying and showing some of its body, the log was a lot lower than I thought. And it was actually, if you think, I'm trying to describe this for podcast ears, but like rather than something being like a flat on broadside shot, suddenly the animal is tilted with its spine away. So that means that the arrow is coming through, it's hitting slightly high anyway. And instead of going through the vitals, it's going straight up into the shoulder blade. Bam, hits that shoulder blade. So the arrow snaps and it then drives all the way down the shoulder blade. And so it's not, that'd probably be a fatal shot. But the thing that surprised me is like what I thought was standing, then jumped 4 foot up in the air onto the bank and was suddenly, I think I was so surprised and inexperienced.
Were you using a fixed or a mechanical broadhead? Okay.
I was using a fixed, but at the time I was shooting axis arrows with those insert kind of, I guess those inserts, they're called like hit inserts or something.
Yeah.
So they weren't great. Like I've since changed. I can use those shafts, but like I found outserts work much better. You know, like a full metal, strong. Yep. So anyway, yeah. So it broke and then, you know, shattered and went down the shoulder blade. So anyway, I saw this thing jump up. I was too dumbfounded to grab another arrow, and it, like then just like ran off up the hill. To my horror, you know, you're like, oh no, I've just like taken a risk and this thing has not worked out.
Yeah.
So
that's tough, but still.
Yeah, it's tough. So then proceeds the stuff that I was taught by Tace. Okay, be patient. Like sit down. I think it was like give it like an hour, wait. I waited and then I got there, found the arrow. You know, it wasn't too far away, broken off, a lot of blood, but it was like muscle. And I would have gone straight up the hill because that's where I thought I saw it run. But I looked for blood because that's what Tace said. Like, don't just go where you think they are. Step by step, look for the blood. And like what proceeded was the most painstaking, I think, like 2.5 hours of like finding drop by drop, maybe. And it's not a heavy bleeding area.
Yeah.
Like maybe every 10 to 15 feet, you know, I'd see like a speck of blood, just one speck of blood, like in this everything green. I don't know if you've ever been to like Northwest Coast. I mean, you spent time in Oregon, right? So you know.
Yeah, Oregon and Washington, I've spent plenty of time, so I have
like
an idea.
Foresty kind of environment. It's super thick, everything green. Yeah, so just like absolute terror mixed with focus. You know, fear of like just if I just like wounded this thing and I'm never going to find it again in this like deep, thick rainforest.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I feel like that's something that every archer like thinks about. So I've been doing this long enough to like injure anything and not retrieve it, but I've only killed a turkey with my bow, right? So, but like I know that eventually I will not get the shot that I want, and eventually an animal will just be hurt and I won't find it, and so it's just part of the game. I think it's sad. But yeah, you know, it's part of the process. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, right? Like, no one likes to fuck it up. No one plans to.
Best way to put
it. but you know, you're choosing to do something way harder than just point and click. You know, there's a lot of factors, and so that tracking process, as stressful as it is, it's like it's fun if you succeed.
Yeah. And so obviously the tracking worked out. Did I'm assuming the critter got away in this story?
No.
Okay, well then keep going.
No, 2.5 hours of tracking, like painstaking, like on my hands and knees, finding drop after drop. I probably traveled, I don't know, a third of a mile through some like relatively perilous terrain. There was definitely some points where like very steep canyon had like landslid away and there's just tiny animal tracks through it, you know, and I saw that that's where the tracks had gone. But it was like, I've got to just figure out, like, do I want to try and get this thing? I don't know how I'm going to come back. Like, what am I going to carry, like a 150-pound deer on my shoulders through here? No, I'm not. So I don't know how I'm going to figure this out later, but I'm just going to try and follow it. So anyway, it got to a point where I was tracking and then looked up and it was stood there looking at me broadside, like 17 yards away, just dead still. No way. And I was like, wait, is this the same deer? Like, I need to check. Like, I'm not just going to shoot another buck right now. Yeah, and I you know, gave it another look and just bam, next shot was straight through the heart, and then it like kamikaze, it just jumped. It did that like deer jump, the like lunge of the heart shot, jumped and like just belted all the way down the hillside.
And of course, down to the bottom.
Down all the way, it's like sheer steep to the bottom where the river is, and snapped an antler off, and everything. So it hit hard. Yeah.
Did you find the first arrow in when you were cutting them up?
Yeah, I did. Wow. I found it. And it was the shoulder blade was shattered, and it had hit the scapula, and like the way the scapula has like a raised ridge edge, it hit that and then drove all the way down the like. Kind of in line with the spine.
Okay.
back towards
But
the
didn't
back.
hit anything vital. It would have just probably slowly bled out and
Probably, yeah. I don't know. I
yeah.
mean, I don't know if it would have survived, but it was definitely like significantly injured. It was limping, so
Yeah. Yeah. That's
yeah. I
crazy,
mean,
man.
it's not
That's
not
so
ideal.
cool though that you took that practical knowledge that that guy took his time. Like you could have just walked and found that Steenbach. You know, it was 40 yards away. But he
Exactly.
took his time to teach you that and it paid off in the future. Like your next hunt, right? It paid
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
That's super cool. You're gonna have to teach me all of that stuff, Robin, because I don't know any of it.
Oh, happily, dude. Happily. Yeah. So it was definitely a glorious moment. Yeah, and I think I again was like, oh, I know I can just carry this thing out on my back again, stupidly, rather than like pedaling. So that was ridiculous. I think I definitely damaged a vertebrae in that
Yeah,
process at
and that's
some
and
point.
that's how you met, and that's how you met Preston. Let me ask you this: Have you bought a better backpack? Have you bought like a backpack or anything to
I
you guys
do. I
make
have
giant
one.
backpacks?
I've got like a giant backpack for pack. Like I don't know. I for
You're
some
just like I don't
reason
need to use the backpack that I bought it for. You know, I'm just gonna throw this whole thing on my shoulder.
it gets to a point where I'm like, oh, it's probably quicker to just like sling it on my shoulders
Yeah.
and get out, right? But
That's the
that's
big guy syndrome. Everyone talks about Napoleon syndrome, you know, like being overly aggressive for the little guys. But the big guys, like, yeah, I can do this. And then we hurt ourselves because we think we can do more than we actually can.
no, you're exactly right. You're exactly
Yeah.
right. I do need
Yeah.
to. It just seems like just cutting this thing up and doing like 4 pack outs is going to be a mission. So or like 2 pack outs even. It's going to be just to get in one go. But yeah, I definitely next time I definitely need to do it properly.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Cool. Well, I know you have a few more stories
I
for us.
do. I
So
do.
if you want to just go with the natural progression, or if you want to jump to one, you tell me, man. This is
Yeah,
fun.
let's
I'm having a good time. This is unique. We don't often hear about. First off, I don't know if I've had anyone hunting in California before
okay.
because I also have had only. I don't think I've had anyone hunting. I think I just told you DIY South Africa. So
Mhm.
you've got a very unique perspective to your hunting beyond the fact that you're like new to it. Never
Yeah.
mind the fact that you're English. Like I don't know if I've talked to any English hunters ever. So this is cool.
Okay.
Keep going, man. Keep going. This is fun.
Yeah, a few firsts. Yeah, so okay, let me think about this. I think then, I mean, amongst a bunch of other fun stuff like hunting with a bow, I've done a bunch of like duck hunting and turkey hunting and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess like the next, I went back. This is actually, I'll tell another story about South Africa. A really good trip I just got back from in South Africa actually. But before that, this was a few months ago. I say a few months ago, I guess it was last year, the end of deer season. Um, I was back in the same area where I shot the bear, but the bear got their revenge, or the bears got their revenge on me.
All
Yeah,
right. Did
yeah.
they?
So,
I'm just waiting for you to tell me they stole your picnic basket or something. But go ahead, man.
of sorts, of sorts. So, yeah, I was hunting in a similar area, a different river, excuse me, but working my way through a river, and yeah, it was actually my like last day that I could hunt. I was working a lot last year, freelance job, and it was very intense. And I managed to get like a bit of time off, and I basically just was like down to the wire. I was supposed to have left and gone home, but I
Yeah.
was like, I'm here. I could give it like 2 more hours. What I could just get home later. So I like went back down and came up this river area, and yeah, just came around the corner, and there was a black-tailed deer, like a fork. And in California, you've got to have a fork, or at least on one side, for it to be a legal buck. By no means was this a big buck. No,
Yeah.
this is a last moment, last chance.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Just
be
fill in the
choosing
freezer.
right now.
Yeah.
This is yeah, and so I was like, it was in felt because that's kind of like the way the seasons are quite funny in California. That it's quite hot. I think it's in July, August time. That was when I was hunting. So I was super close, um, 17 yards. Although I think I guessed it was like 18 yards or something like that, maybe 17 yards. and then it moved a bit. I think it ended up being like 15 yards or something, super close. It doesn't really make that much difference when it's that close.
Yeah.
But it was like quartering two, and I didn't actually have that much knowledge at the time of like where the best place to put a shot is. And I think I did actually instinctively aim a bit too far back at that point, because I mean, even a slight quartering toward shot, I'm speaking very obvious things. I'm sure everyone knows this, but it's things that were like kind of ingrained in my head as the old classic broadside position. I didn't aim inside shoulder or shoulder, whereas like I'm shooting like, you know, a 70 plus pound bow, 33-inch draw. Like the thing is, it's going to go through.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a problem. So I didn't aim super far back or anything, but like just the shot seemed good. The blacktail jumped great. Like it jumped that classic way, like, oh, that's a kill shot, you know, like, and it ran up over like a hill 30 yards away. And
all guts, right? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like that's the funny thing. I waited like half an hour or whatever, was like feeling good, feeling confident, all fine. Walked up to the arrow, and it was like just like shit everywhere. There wasn't blood trail, there was just poop everywhere. it was like what's that, like old fashioned 70s interior, like pebble dashed like wall. It was just like the world was pebble dashed brown. Like,
God,
it was a harrowing moment.
It's like popcorn ceiling, just brown. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh yeah. So that was not my finest moment. But you know, had to deal with like the reality and like another tracking job. It's just like kicking myself at that point.
Yeah.
But
now you're tracking brown in the forest, which is not the easiest thing to track, right?
But the thing was, it was like a poop explosion and then no blood. So I was like, I'm going to stop this. Like everything it says you should do, like the papers say, like no, the papers, they're not writing about this in the papers. The manuals say, you know, you've got to get out of there and wait for a while. So I just like went away, you know, went back to camp, shot, you know, shot some target, like shot at some targets, just tried to stay calm for like another hour or something.
Yeah, distract yourself. Makes sense.
And then, you know, I was like, okay, now I just got to like figure out like what to do. There's no trail, there's nothing. So I basically just do like a circle of hope, you know, and literally I walked 20 yards up over that hill, and I was like, oh, I can see something. And at that point, it didn't look good. Something, and I don't know if you've ever, well, I mean, it sounds like you have seen black bear, but sometimes it's very hard to just like determine what they actually are. They have this weird amalgamous, is that the word? Like they just kind of shift shape almost. It's very hard to determine exactly what, you don't always immediately go like, oh, that's a black bear. It's just like, anyway, this thing jumps.
You're 100% right. I'm thinking of an elk hunt I was on, and we were glassing this hillside. And like the morning before, we saw some mule deer and some elk, and we're like, oh, mule deer and elk. But then the next morning, we're like, what is that? And we're like, well, is that a turkey? Like we couldn't figure it out. Like, no, it's way too big to be a turkey. It's just like something about them. You just like can't really tell what they are until you know for sure, right?
Yeah, so, it's just like it's a big, indistinct, like not distinct black furry blob, right? Like it's very hard to know what it is. So anyway, the thing jumped and crouched down at me like a cat. So first thing I thought was like, oh shit, this is like a mountain lion on my kill. Probably should have been annoyed, but I was like, cool. Immediately pulled my phone out and was like, oh, I'm gonna just try and video this thing as I approach it. And and then it soon became clear that actually, oh no, that's not a lion, that's a massive bear. I mean, massive to me, it was probably 400 pounds.
That's a big black bear. That's a big black bear.
It was much bigger than the other bears I'd seen. Big old belly on the thing.
Yeah, and you're not throwing that one on your back and walking out.
No, that's for sure. But it kind of like, it almost, if any animals can look like have human emotions, it looked at me with disgust and disdain and like just walked away. It didn't run away. Like it just like walked off from the scene slowly, like with occasional glance over its shoulder just to look like annoyed that I was ruining its party.
Yeah, ruining its meal. So
I got to the blacktail. From what I could see, I'd shot it despite the poo factory that the blood trail was. It had died in 50 yards, 60 yards,
Yeah.
like bam, straight down. So I don't know what happened there, but it was a complete crime scene. Like the bear had chowed like first like the back of the thigh, in the butt, like in the guts, in the like everything, like chewed its ears off, chewed like neck. Actually, I don't think it got the neck. It got like inside the armpits, like
That's so interesting.
just grabbed it. And I thought like, okay, there's a lot of torn, like open wound kind of stuff. It looks just like National Geographic, like it, it just looks like the Sahara or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like, okay, well, this is not a huge deer. This is like, probably 90 pounds. I don't know. I'll carry it out on my back.
we got a common theme here, Robin.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it was pretty light. So I just made a backpack out of its this is a trick I learned. Like they'll cut in the arms, the forearms or whatever, and you can poke the back ones in, and then you can make a pack out of it. So I mean, maybe it was a bit less, maybe it was like 75, 80 pounds, I don't know. Yeah, gutted it and then just carried it out on my back and got it out. But yeah, that was definitely gutting and processing that like claimed deer was definitely a bit of a, I need to have eyes in the back of my head.
Right.
Because
now, let me ask.
Yeah.
I don't have any experience with this kind of thing, but like the meat that the bear chewed on, did you just kind of like cut that bit out, or like is that meat salvageable and you throw it into like a ground, or how does that work out? I have no idea.
It's a good question. It's a good question, which I should probably get back to you on.
You're like, I'll eat some of it and tell you how it went.
Well, so I'm working through some of the other meat in my freezer at the moment, but so actually when I got back, I didn't think it was so bad, like, like the arms, like the front arm, one had been like chewed up in the shoulder, and then like one back hindquarter, both hindquarters took a bit of a nibble, but one more than the other, it didn't look so bad, but when I got it back home and I took the skin off, took his pajamas off, wow, like the level of destruction was unbelievable. Like,
really?
And what the bear had done was, yeah, he'd broken through some of the hide and like eaten that stuff and some of the organs and stuff, but also he'd like nibbled, almost like if you can imagine like biting your arm and then tearing, bite, tear, bite, tear, bite, tear. So it was like all the muscles underneath were just like ripped and destroyed and like really like broken. So like seeing all like just the fibers like torn with the force of this bear chewing on this poor tiny deer.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like the level of destruction was really surprising. I can send you a pic if you like at some point. It's pretty like, whoa.
Yeah. No, please do. I'd be interested in seeing that. Hopefully I can stomach it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll send you a pic. So the funny thing was the only thing that didn't get chewed were the blessed back straps. They were like totally unscathed. So that was great. And the neck was fine. And then, like basically I just cut around. There were like these deep teeth marks, even like deep teeth marks with like bits of leaf and stuff deep in the muscle from where the teeth had gone in and pushed, like injected bacteria and food into the muscles. So yeah, I did salvage, I don't know, I think I got like 25 pounds, 30 pounds of meat, maybe. I don't know, 20.
Yeah, that's not bad, especially with the back straps, right? You probably got the tenderloins as well. They probably were pretty untouched. Or when he went in and got the guts, did he rip those apart too?
Yeah, he ripped the tent. Like it was such a crime scene inside the cavity, like from my poor shot and it being like such a gut explosion.
That's a good point.
It was like really filthy inside. So that was not salvageable, sadly. But I mean, better than nothing. But like, so the funny thing is, it's like if I had followed the rules, if I hadn't followed the rules, and if I'd done what like a regular noob would have done, which is like just charge over the top of the hill.
Yeah, might have all been fine.
Dead there on the ground, and it would have been fine. Just like great success. But like, I guess you can never really know. No situation's going to be the same.
Exactly. Hindsight's 20/20, right? In California, bear tags, are they just like in Colorado? You get your elk tag, you can basically pay another $30 and you can get yourself a bear tag as far as a resident. In California, did you have a bear tag when you saw that big bear, or did you just have the blacktail tag?
I did have a bear tag, and
But you were
it's
too busy videotaping the
yeah,
mountain lion,
I was
right?
yeah. You can't get a mountain lion tag,
Yeah.
so I was pretty committed on documentation. No, you know what, that's a hindsight thing where I was like, oh, if I could have shot like a big black bear at that point. Maybe that was like an amazing bait situation. But yeah, I don't. To be honest, it all happened so fast. I don't think I had
Yeah.
time. Maybe now I would think about that because I would probably be like, oh, okay, maybe there's a buck that's like potentially in a very high lion bear area. Like there are a lot of predators around there. So I could have been thinking more about that at the time. Yeah, but so I did have a tag. I didn't take a shot.
Gotcha.
Didn't even occur to me, to be honest. Didn't. I
Okay.
was actually mostly happy about getting the deer. You know,
Yeah,
like,
no, I'm sure I would have done the exact same thing. Wouldn't even thought about the other tags and just been like, "Oh no, I found my deer."
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's it. I think I made it as a joke, but he kind of did steal your picnic basket.
No, literally, yeah. Took
Yeah.
it, tore it up, like messed it up, and then put it back in the basket for me. Made me think, yeah, it's okay. It's all fine. No, no,
Yeah.
no. I took the basket home and was pretty sad.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. Well, let me know how that meat is.
I
I'm
will. I
curious.
will. I had the back straps already. They're great. I mean, like it's. I mean, yeah. I don't know if you've ever shot. Like it sounds bad, but like lamb is lamb for a reason, right? Like young animals taste really good. So
Yeah.
as long apart from being through the bear blender, yeah. If you can get the salvaged bits, then it's really tasty and very tender.
Yeah, I've heard that in general. The younger and also I don't know if this is true at all, but I've heard that like and the term they use, and I don't know if this is just that guy's term or an actual term, but a wet mother, which means like a mother that is like lactating.
Yeah.
I heard they're top notch, and specifically what I'm
Oh,
talking to is hogs. So here in Texas, we have lots of wild hogs. I've been on a wild hog hunt, and the hog meat that I took home with me was a lactating sow, and it was delicious. Like I ate that for 2 years because she was huge. Um,
how
and I've heard
big?
that like the big boys are not that delicious. So like I don't know if it's true or not because I haven't had any other pig to compare it to. But yeah, younger, smaller, and who knows, maybe lactating mothers.
Yeah. No,
Who knows?
it's a very specific niche, but I like it. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
but is it suckling? Wait.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, of course, like the Texas boys that I was hunting with, they were like squeezing because it's got like 8 mammary glands, and they're
yeah.
squeezing and shooting milk at each other. It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous moment. I was like, What the hell's going on right now?" But
It
either way,
definitely does. It definitely does become a moment. Um, that transition when it's like the horror or like the trauma does start to wear off. I think once you've like shot. I mean, like I don't think maybe it's different for us too, but like some people they've shot so many animals that like that's long faded away to the point where
yeah.
just humor becomes a more prevalent element.
Yeah, especially in Texas, right? Wild hogs are a huge problem. They just rip apart agriculture and all sorts of different stuff. And that trip, I didn't kill any because I just didn't see any. But as a group, we killed 17 hogs.
Wow.
And the guys that were doing it were like, "We do this every weekend." So like to them, it's probably just it's like working at a slaughterhouse, right? They're just processing meat. It's just what it is to them. So, but yeah, they were still having fun with it.
Yeah, you actually reminded me of a side story of one of the pigs I shot in South Africa the first time. It was one of those funny things. I don't know with pigs with bow hunting. It's like sometimes the shot can be great. I mean, I didn't have an expandable broadhead. I was using a single blade broadhead, so sometimes it just doesn't quite get all the stuff it needs to. It was a double lung, just like perfect shot, fine. But we had to track it for like 45 minutes, I think, to
Huh.
get to finding the spot. Like I had a guide with me at that point. And yeah, we got into it and it got to the point of like about to take a shot, but the thing was completely on its last legs. But it was like dropping, getting up, dropping, like, just really like giving it the good fight. Like it was unbelievable. The amount of times this thing got up and then fell on the ground and got up again. It was
Yeah.
like in my mind, like pretty poignant, like pretty emotional. I don't say emotional, but like, like quite shocking thing to see. And I was like, it's like, you know, you're in that moment. And then I look over and my guide is like cracking up, like going like, have you seen this pig? It just won't just stay down. I'm like, whoa, like
what a range of emotions between you and her. That's
yeah,
crazy.
exactly. I was not expecting that response. But I guess, you know, you just get cold to it. You do that every day.
Yeah, I guess so. As far as that shot you said you took on that hog, I'm going on a hog hunt in 10 days.
Okay.
It's just west of Austin. And
Ooh.
this guy was like, he's like, are you going to archery hunt or are you going to rifle hunt? And I was like, well, I'm going to bring both because I'm not going to miss the opportunity, but I'd like to archery hunt. And so he sent me a video specifically about pigs. And I don't know if the pigs that you're talking about there in South Africa are like, I mean, here we basically have domestic pigs that are just roaming around.
Like a wild boar, right?
Exactly. Like, yeah, but like the boars that they have in Africa are a little different. They got
this one though. Those ones, two that I shot there, are actually like European boar that were brought over in like the 1500s or whatever, and like have been running amok ever since. You know, like they're a real pest problem just as much there as they are in Texas. You know.
Gotcha. Well, he sent this video and basically it talked about the anatomy where their spines kind of go up and they drop down in, and like unlike ungulates or deer and elk, where their spines go up and just follow the top curvature of their backs, they actually go into the center of their body because their heads come out of the center of their body. So their vitals are all lower, and basically a quartering away shot is what you want. Like you don't want to take a broadside shot because there's nothing there, but you want to do quartering away and low, like bottom quarter. So I just learned that. So hopefully I get to apply it.
Yeah, for sure.
In 10 days.
Even like a side on shot is fine. You just need to be like low, you know, not crazy low, but just low of middle, I think.
Yeah. But just like fine. Kind of where their head comes out compared to a deer, it just pushes all of that.
You can hit that neck, that high neck area, and if you just go through that, then it's not gonna.
Yeah, and they're not creatures meant for running, so they don't have the big lungs that deer have, right? They're just little garbage disposals basically. So they have these little lungs, little hearts, and so it's a tough animal to kill with a bow. So
I think they're supposed to be one of the smartest animals in the world, but like I don't know, I'm yet to see it. They've been pretty like pretty dumb. Like I'm unbelievable. I've seen them sometimes where it's like, I don't know. It's almost like they just get to a point where they're so clever that they accept their own fate. They're like I've been on hunts where it's super windy, and it's almost like the wind is blowing. All other animals become super aware, you know, and like looking around extra and being extra attentive. But pigs are just like, well, I guess it's my time then. And they just bury their heads in the ground and just start snuffling and don't even bother listening. I can send you another video. Like once I hunted enough pigs, it gets to a point where you can like creep up on a pig and be throwing rocks at it from like 5 yards away, bouncing, and it's like whatever. Like it doesn't even care. It's crazy how they
that's
can be.
Funny. And it's funny. I have a podcast that's going to come out 1 week before this, so everyone's probably already heard it. But the last story he tells is he shot a sow and she had all these piglets, and he just walks up on all these hogs and they don't know what to do, so he just starts collecting them. He's just picking up these baby pigs. And his thoughts are that like he can get them to maybe call in some predators with their squealing, but he puts these baby pigs on a leash and it goes hunting with his wild baby piglets. So it's a crazy story. So it's not out yet. It's going to come out. Let's see, what is today? Today's April 10th. That's going to be the 17th, and this episode's coming out the 24th. So you got to check it out, Robin. It's a pretty funny story. Short episode, but
for sure. No, it's hilarious. Those baby pigs, when they're really young, they can't. I mean, I saw it last time I was there in South Africa. Like they can't see very well, and like I had them like my PH or my like hunting guide was laying down looking. We were trying to get like a big pig that had gone into some reeds by a river, and he just crawled up and was looking down the bank trying to see. And this baby pigs were just like engulfed us, and these baby pigs were like, crawling along, like walking along like by his leg, like 3 inches, like turns to look at like his boot and is like, "Ooh, what's that?" Like they just have no idea about what's going on.
I've heard, like you said, I've heard they're very smart. As smart as like the smartest dogs, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah. So I should probably get to the point. Otherwise we'll be here all night.
All right, man. Well, keep going. I know you at least have a turkey story for us, but keep going with whatever you want to next.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we can do. Maybe we'll do that one last if we have time.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess like the last sort of like couple of stories that go well together, I'd say, is like the last trip I just did in South Africa. like going back and hunting was really, really good. Like I think that was a point, like a bit of a turning point of like learning and like also getting into that world of bow hunting there as well. It was amazing. So
Yeah.
I think beforehand I'd always like been like, oh, I'm just going to go see the family and I'll try and figure it out as I get there, you know, I'll try and figure it out that way. But because usually we're there for a little while, you know, like a few weeks. But this last time I was like, I'm actually going to put some time and prep in and try and actually like connect to some people. So I actually Tace, who I mentioned before, the guy who owns the game farm over on the East Coast, no, the West Coast. Sorry, I kind of just sent him a message and was like, oh hey dude, do you have any friends or you know anyone who's like up for really stupidly hard hunts, like going off into like ridiculous areas and wouldn't mind me tagging along, like. And you know, it was just thought like it's worth a try. And
Yeah.
he actually didn't even reply with a message. He just sent me someone's contact details. He said, I was like,
He's like, here you go. This is who you want.
okay. So yeah, that turned out to be a guy called Caden, who I actually hunted with a lot in South Africa. And he, opened the door to like South African bow hunting as well, very much. Like he's what, 23 years old, 24 years old. He's got like a ton of energy, makes me like tired. He's so energetic. Like how like hunting with that guy makes me feel old. I'm like, what? I'm like 37.
Yeah.
And oh man, like yeah, he's like his level of enthusiasm and like just willingness to just keep pounding and keep going. It's like inspirational, that's for sure.
That's
So
cool.
yeah,
That's super
doing
cool.
some tough hunts with him was really, really fun. So yeah, we did like some pig hunts. We did a lot of hunts like chasing all kinds of big animals, kudu and wildebeest. Wildebeest. Using the wrong terminology. And yeah, like eland. Got very close to some eland, but couldn't quite make the shot happen. And we got some pigs together. That was fun. He actually like videoed some of them, which is great. Like that one day he came pig hunting with us. He didn't even bring a camera. So that's just the kind of like the selflessness of the guy. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna like just come and help and have fun with you guys. Like I've never met
Right.
him before. So that was
You said he didn't bring a camera. Did you mean maybe he didn't bring a bow, but
oh
he brought his
sorry,
camera?
yeah. Yeah, that's
Okay.
my mistake. He didn't bring a
That's all
bow.
right.
He had a
That's
camera.
pretty cool. Just a guy who loves being there.
Yeah, exactly. And he just loves it. And he's been hunting since he's like, I don't know, 10 years old.
Yeah.
So he's just been doing it for so long. He's got like loads of experience. And it was actually through those hunts with him, I guess, hopefully I must have made the right impression on him because he then was like, oh, you should come hunt over in the Eastern Cape with a guy who's called Fred Hammer,
Mm-hmm.
who's like a professional hunter. And he owns a farm. Actually, I don't think he owns the farm, but he works on the farm, though he has access to hunt that whole area in the Eastern Cape, which is near a town called Bedford, of all places. Sounds very English. I guess there was some English people occupying before. But yeah, so we did like a 8-day hunting trip over there, and just had like the best time. Like the time of year it was like November. I think it was December. So in the southern hemisphere, like South Africa, that's like summer. It's like hot,
Yeah.
you know. And sure, yeah. So we were doing some hot, like humid, sweaty. It was like 100 degrees, like super hot, super sweaty, like chasing warthogs around, like super fun, like hunting warthogs.
Yeah.
Warthogs are some of the funnest things to hunt, man. They're like a great combination, like pigs, general pigs, like European boar or Russian boar, as they're called. They're a fun thing to hunt as well, but they are, as I said before, a little less aware
Yeah.
at times. They're a bit less aware. Whereas like warthogs are like that mixture of like antelope awareness. They're not as aware as antelope, but they're definitely a lot smarter, a lot more aware, but they're still pigs and they love to like stick their faces in the mud as well. So, and, you know, it's like Pumbaa. They're like this amazing,
Yeah.
they're like cartoon characters running around. So, we had so much fun, like chasing around pigs, doing that together. Like, had a couple of successful hunts. He shot like 4 or 5 of them, I think.
Wow.
But I got a couple. And yeah, just like your classic kind of walk and stalk moments, like getting up high, seeing some stuff in the valley, you know, seeing like one hunt in particular was really good. There's this area on Fred's farm, which is called, he calls it number 10 Downing Street. And it's like this cliff. It's like a cliff which can see down into the valley, and you can see it almost like a map. It's almost like a gameplay, like layout. So you can get up there and you can look down and you can see just a shitload of everything.
God, that's cool.
Not almost everything, you know. And so that's why he calls it number 10 Downing Street, because you can see the world from there. So that obviously appealed to me in my English traits. Maybe he even just said that to butter me up.
Let me ask. I think I know the reference. That's where the Queen lives. Is that right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, sorry. I'm making a very specific.
I knew it was an English reference.
It's an English reference. Number 10 Downing Street is where the Prime Minister, the person who runs the country, gets to live. Like every time that there's an election,
I knew it was the Queen or the Prime Minister. I couldn't tell the difference. But okay, that's awesome.
The Queen doesn't live anywhere sadly anymore.
That is true.
May she rest in peace. Absolutely. But the royal family is in Buckingham Palace and various other ridiculous places. Just had a great time. Yeah, and what some of those classic kind of like walk and stalk, spot it, stalk in, managed to make, you know, I think there was some extra complications with there's a lot of fallow deer there as well, which are amazing. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with fallow. You must have them in Texas, I guess.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
They're these amazing
cool little guys. They have a crazy little bark on them, don't they?
They do. Yeah. And it's actually the rut right now there, which is really? It's great. I was talking to him on the phone a couple of days ago, and he's like, "Oh, can you hear this? Like, you just hear them barking everywhere." I'm so jealous. It sounds so fun. Anyway, so trying to maneuver around fallow deer and other creatures and get to the warthog and get the shot. And so that was great. Had some good experiences. But I guess the thing that I kind of wanted to get to is after a few days of hunting and we got like a few warthogs on the ground, obviously made a bunch of mistakes.
Do you eat warthogs? Sorry to interrupt, but do you eat those or okay?
Yeah. Oh, they're fantastic. They taste really, really good. Yeah. So like, I think at the end of this trip, I'm trying to think how much warthog, like Caden, you know, it's nice having the local connection. So we went in Caden's car and left with, it was like 125 kilos of meat. So what's that? Like 250 pounds of maybe more, 270 pounds of warthog meat in the back. Wow. So good. Yeah, and it makes really good sausage. And
is that and I assume you fly it all back home. Is that expensive to get it all back, or do you just?
Sadly, I need to check what the rules are, but I think that you can't bring like meat from Africa to the US.
Okay, so it's at the in-laws waiting for you then.
Exactly. So that's the kind of one thing that's like, I guess, a unique perk for me is that I can like run around doing this stuff and know that I'm putting meat in their deep freezer.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they love it. Like I still get messages from them going, "Oh, the sausages are so good." So it's great. Yeah, it's good. So like after maybe 4 or 5 days of me and Caden running amok, chasing, you know, various animals and getting warthogs on the ground, Fred, who's like a hunting guide as well as a farmer, but also it turns out like an amazing bow hunter. He's been hunting for like 15, 20 years in the area, like bow hunting. He seemed very amused by all our stories, and then was like, "Oh, okay, like, well, I'll take you out maybe tomorrow afternoon then if you're up for it, you know." And like, I mean, I didn't really know the context of the situation. I think I'm just like a new guy in the area, but Caden was very excited about this prospect. He was like nodding practically. I'm like, "Yeah, of course, amazing. Yeah, please come." So, you know, we mess around the next morning. I don't know, probably messed up some hunts. and then Fred basically picks us up with his like 1980s truck, like very retro looking truck, and then drives us to this other area, which is very known for like waterbuck. And waterbuck is like can be about 700-pound animal. It's this amazing thing. It's like got like one single sweep to the horns, and yeah, they're just incredible animals. Like they're long fur, not super long, but like slightly longer fur than a lot of the other antelope that you'd see. But anyway, we drove over there, and it was like, I don't know, probably 2:30, and like got to the gate and everything, got in. It's all very like, it's just someone's farmland, like it's not like a big hunting farm. Actually, the thing that's really nice about that whole area in the Eastern Cape is that it's like low fence. It's they kind of have like a conservancy agreement amongst all of the whole area, which is like they don't want to high fence it. It's all kind of like protected, not protected, but like, they have an agreement to like keep it as like open free range animals.
Got it.
So like the
that's pretty cool.
to hunt like free range animals in that huge area is just like, it's incredible. It's not just like high fence hunting. It's really special. So yeah, we get there, and Fred, I'm kind of hoping that this is what's going to happen, but Fred basically, we get there, we drive in a little bit, and he drops Caden off. And Fred's like, all right, I'm going to take you out now. And I was like, yes, okay, this is going to be good. By that time, Caden had like told me how much of a ninja Fred is. And like what proceeded to kind of unfold was maybe like the craziest 2.5 hours of hunting mayhem I've ever experienced in my life. Like we got to that area, and we actually wear all like leafy jackets there. Like those guys wear leafy jackets. It's like a thing. I never really thought it was necessary, and I just by chance bought one as an experiment before going.
Like a ghillie suit?
Like a ghillie suit jacket, exactly. Yeah, just the top. And they would do that, and then put like, or like a hat, and the ones they have a hood up.
Okay.
So
does that affect like with a bow? Because I'm thinking it's just going to catch all of that little, dangly stuff as you're pulling back and letting go.
Yeah, no, you're right. It can. But I actually have like one of those nerdy arm guard things. Okay. Like if you're like a beginning archer or whatever.
Yeah.
So either like a neck gaiter slid over the arm, or
gotcha. So you just sort of tie it in
those leaves, or you can just cut the leaves away. But I haven't done that yet. Like, so I just got one of those things on just to prevent the string from getting in the way. Yeah. So he's also got one of those things, but he doesn't have a bow, and he's walking around with his hood up, and I'm following him, and it literally feels like I'm playing a video game. Like at this moment, he's walking around with this like hood up, like door, like hands behind his back, just walking around. And I'm just like following him around. I'm surprised how fast he's moving. Like I've always been like perhaps overly cautious, but like very, very slow, trying to like not spook anything, like very fearful of spooking anything.
Yeah. Don't want to break any sticks,
Yeah, all of that stuff. Yeah. And the great is like just walking around. And I'm like, how is this even going to work? Like this guy's moving so quick. And then suddenly like, boop, he just stops, puts his hand out like behind him, not lifting it or anything, just puts his hand out and just like leans over his shoulder and says, do you want to shoot that kudu over there? And I like, look, what are you talking? In my head, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I haven't managed to get closer than like 90 yards to a kudu. Those things are called the gray ghost for a reason. They're crazy. Like they have super sensors.
Yeah.
Like, look across, and there's like a cow kudu with his head behind a branch, like chewing, or her head, I should say, chewing a leaf like 18 yards away. Like the thing is like right next to us, and I had no idea it was even there. I'm like, oh shit, like immediately, instantly rattled. I like grab try and get my arrow in or whatever, like in the guard, get everything knocked and stuff. And I think I do it quietly, but like that thing is, the gray ghost hears me once again, and just trots off into the thick brush. And this terrain, I should probably describe it, it's like they call them thickets. It's like thick bushes that are probably maximum 10 feet high, and it's a lot of these like thick brushy bushes all over the place with just small clearings of like grassland all around.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the terrain that we're going around here. And so then that's that moment done. Like he's like, cool, let's move on. Carries on walking back into the video game, like prancing around, like chasing after him, like trying to keep up and still walk quietly. And he's taught me all these things about how to walk, like only walking on the outsides of your feet is like a way of moving your foot very, very quietly. Even if you're walking fast, you can actually be a lot quieter.
Huh.
I'm not sure if I'm sure people
I've never heard that. No, that's brilliant. I'm gonna practice that.
Try it, yeah. So just try it. It's like heel to toe and always rolling on the outside of your foot. And that will be a lot quieter over all terrain, you know. The other thing they also do is they wear very soft, rubbery, flat-soled shoes. It's almost like a desert shoe. Do you know like a desert boot? Anyway, it's a specific type of shoe. It's like tread, thick, grippy tread, and big boots make a lot of noise. So they wear these like super quiet shoes that they can like just trot about on, like quiet, squishy shoes. That it's very fun. I mean, they don't have a lot of like steep, nasty terrain that they're hunting in.
Yeah.
But obviously, it wouldn't be practical if you're trying to go down a sheer slope. But in that environment, that's like makes a huge difference. There's a huge number of like small details with the things that they do.
Right now, my pronghorn hunt, I just threw my boots in the truck. Like that's it. They're gone. I'm switching. I'm switching to tennis shoes or something.
No,
continue.
Sure.
Continue. I'm excited.
It's actually worth trying. Like something which is like flatter, softer soled shoes might help if you're trying to get in close on pronghorn with a bow. On a pronghorn with a bow. So yeah, then the hunt continues. This is just 2.5 hours. So this is like 20 minutes in. When we're moving through the thickets, moving through, seeing things, we're seeing animals. Like there's impala and there's things called blesbok, which are about the size of like white-tailed deer. They're pretty amazing looking. They've got very strange shaped horns. A blesbok is like Blesbok. Yeah, so we're kind of like moving through the terrain, and yeah, we get to like this area. Fred looks pretty excited. We're like moving through, trying to get close, but it's very tricky because when there's so many animals in all the thickets, there's so many pairs of eyes. It's really hard. Except it's not hard following Fred because like somehow we're just like running around and not being detected by an animal. I just don't understand what's happening. Like, I've never experienced anything like it. Just moving around unseen is just remarkable. Like how I've never experienced that. I've never been able to achieve that, right?
Yeah.
To the level of detail of like, okay, he finds these blesbok and it's like, okay, we've got a clearing. There's a trophy blesbok up here. Follow me. He's moving super fast. He gets on the ground and starts moving through this really thick brush. But the way he was crawling, it wasn't like you would imagine, like, I don't know, you or I would like crawl. It was like you're on your hands and knees and you're like crawling with your bow in your hand and, you know, that kind of thing. He later explained to me that that's not a way to move because if you crawl on all fours, you look like a predator.
Huh.
You know, like, and I guess it's the same in the US. You look like a bear or a lion. You know, that's how they move. So what he would do is he would be, I'm trying to describe this for the, you know, audio, but like, imagine if you're on your knees with sitting on your heels. He would take one huge lean forwards with his left foot, reach out like long straight leg, and then put all his weight on that next foot and slide up like upright, like moving up to his next spot to like reset and do it again and again and again and again. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah, I think so.
So yeah, basically just like this weird kind of syncopated movement, which is like squatting on sitting on your heels, stretch out with your leg, move forwards. Then again, same squatting position. And then
so upright the whole time. Okay.
Kind of upright, yeah. And what that does is it means you're moving like, it's like one movement and then stop, one movement and then stop. It's not like a constant movement. And that was just like, animals don't detect you if you're moving the way that they move, which is like moving a little bit, stop, move a little bit, stop, you know? And yeah, just bonkers, like the level of detail of the things that he was
hours
teaching.
of just like learning that he's done. That's crazy. Okay.
So we got in like, and somehow got into this clearing and moved in on these animals. There's like 20 animals around us. None of them have seen us. The wind is working. I don't know how. And he's like, okay, this blesbok, this is a trophy blesbok. Always the best thing to tell someone before telling them to take a shot. It's like, this is a really big blesbok. You need to take a shot through this window. He points at a window, which is a hole in the bushes, maybe, I don't know, 6-7 inches across. Yeah. I'm like, that's a pretty small hole to shoot through. He's like, I'm gonna tell you the range. He has my rangefinder, and yeah, he lines it up and says, okay, shuffle in. I'll shuffle in the way he's taught me. Try and do everything right. Try not to fuck up. Like I'm in like absolute awe at this moment. And yeah, I draw back and everything, and he's like, okay, shoot. Tells me exactly where to shoot. It's a quartering away shot. Like line it up through the hole and everything. Everything feels perfect. Like pull through the shot. Poof, feels perfect. I like the arrow goes, and somehow it just drops below it. I don't know what happened. If it hit like the thicket or what it was. I just didn't understand. I just, like you take a shot and you've got like absolute confidence that this thing is, whoop, that's where it's going. Yeah. And it just went whoop, down, and the thing ran, bolted. And it was only after, like just after, as it was bolting, I realized I hadn't heard the like characteristic, like thunk, like meaty thwack of the arrow hitting. Yeah, so I didn't know what it was. Like maybe the range wasn't quite right. It had moved like a couple of yards and I was aiming too low, or I don't know. Like I kind of had this moment of like, oh no.
How far was it? Like,
so I think it was, for you? Oh, he said 24, and I think it was could have been 27. Okay. So I was shooting 640 grain arrows, so okay. They have a bit of weight.
That's a heavy arrow, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So yeah, I had this like look. Obviously, I must have just looked horrified. Like, what did I do wrong? I like looked at him, but he immediately like cracks a smile and is like, "Hey, that's bow hunting." Like it's the way it goes. It's like, oh, okay, cool. That's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, Fred had told me before we even started, like, you're likely to get one good chance on an animal. Like, we're probably going to get one good chance. And so we'd already had like 1.5 chances,
Yeah.
And so we're like, yeah, but let's just try again, like, let's just keep going. We've got like probably an hour of daylight left. Let's just go. So again, back in the video game, charging behind him, like moving through like open ground, like crouching, crawling in my way, like just trying to do everything the way he does it, just trying to like not mess up. And yeah, we got to a clearing, and at this moment, like Fred looks around at me, very excited look on his face. He'd been like pretty calm before this moment, but he had like a giddy look in his eye, and he was like, "This is a very big trophy Impala ram." Like, we're very like, okay. And yeah, basically I hadn't seen it at that moment, but he's like, oh, get ready, draw back, like get ready, like the thing. And basically there was a clearing and this Impala ram, and I should describe an Impala. I don't know if anyone has been along on this journey and has looked at like a springbok, and Impala is kind of a little bit like a springbok, but another very common antelope. Looks a little bit like a speed goat as well. But like, again, Impalas are like very lean and like elegant looking, but they have they're actually quite a lot bigger than a springbok.
Yeah.
I don't know, like up to like 150 pounds or something like that. I don't know. I think I wrote it down here somewhere. What do they get to? 170. Okay. What do they get? And it was a really big one. Again, like, oh, this is a trophy. This is a really good one. You've got to get this. I'm like, okay, no, great. So I line up and I can see this thing is going through the clearing. He's walking from right to left across this clearing towards the thickets, and he's just not stopping. I'm drawn back, I'm anchored, everything feels perfect. I'm waiting, but I don't really want to shoot. The range is 44 yards, I think.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a poke. Not impossible at all. Like a comfortable distance. And basically just before, like, I think like this thing's going to be gone, but just behind me, I hear like sound, and Fred is just whistles like that single high pitched note behind me, and that Impala just stops and like raises his head and just looks towards us. And at that moment, like funk, like just pull through. Everything feels perfect. Like bam, that arrow is flying perfect. Like I'm like, this is fucking. It's like the miss before is not even in my memory. Like it's And I watch my arrow like flying like perfectly towards the kill zone. And then to my absolute amazement, this is something I've never seen before. I've heard of like jumping the string and all that stuff, and I've seen it a bit. this thing is walking from right to left, okay, across the paddock. It drops down so low, right? Gets up, turns around, and is like 2 lengths away before the arrow even gets there.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, I mean, my arrow is probably going like 275 feet per second. It's not going stupidly slow. Like, the thing it was like, all I did is I saw the thing go, and then my arrow just perfectly going through the grass where it had been. I just couldn't believe it. And I wasn't even, at the time, I became perhaps annoyed and bitter about it later. But I was just amazed that I didn't know that. I mean, you know, I've seen blacktails jump and other things, like pigs jump a bit occasionally, like warthogs, but like, wow, I've never seen anything like how an animal can move that quickly. Which is just mind blowing, you know.
Thousands of years of predators, right?
Being chased by lions.
Millions of years being chased by lions
and leopards and everything else, like trying to get them.
That's still pretty cool, though. That's cool to experience something like that, man.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I thought that the day was over, but then we, you know, it very nearly was. We're like, okay, let's just head back to the truck, see what we can do. Again, one more time. Fred, very excited. Oh, this is the biggest water buck I've ever seen in my life, which is 100 pounds, like an elk-sized animal. But it was walking. Like it decided it was going to bed or something. And I'm chasing. I've never been so out of breath trying to be stealthy in my life. Yeah. Like, I'm like, it's almost like you're trying to run, like, I'd say it's like trying to run the 100-meter hurdles with a ceiling that's only like 4 foot high.
Okay.
It was crazy. Like, he's like, we have to intercept this thing before the wind gets to us. It's just like literally grabs me by the sleeve and is like charging through the brush, like silently somehow. We're just moving, and the thing isn't spooking. Yeah. Bam, 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 just keep going. Sadly, we just couldn't quite close the distance on the thing because the animal's so big. It's like, it's thinking the size of an elk. That thing's just walking and it's going really quick. You know, you've got to move so fast.
You had a jog as it walking.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
So yeah, you know, like that was like 2.5 hours of absolute insanity, like 2 arrows loosed on like amazing animals. And as much as I wish that that like it had gone the other way and I'd hit those animals, like the amount I learned and like almost like the way that the world was opened up to me about like, oh wow, this is like how good hunting skills can be, you know?
Yeah. Wow. It's crazy to think that, like, in that 2.5 hours, you had more opportunity than I've ever had bow hunting, and I've been doing it for a couple of years. Dude, that's crazy.
It's so crazy. And then, I mean, the funny thing is, I'll be very brief because I know we need to wrap up. But we were like wrapping up and leaving, and actually, in the meantime, Caden had been having a whole like party with 4 giant kudu bulls who were fighting in a bush. Like, you just heard this like crack noise, and he's like, what is going on? And there's these giant kudus butting heads like in the thickets. So he got to witness that. Sadly couldn't quite close like make it. Actually, the only animal that he could take a shot on was like the only one that didn't have full mature horns, and there's an unwritten rule about not taking shots on immature kudu there. Yeah, so that happened, and then Fred enjoyed like taking us out, so he offered to take me out again the next day, and that was really fun. We were like chasing animals around. Like, we actually got in close to another waterbuck and some other creatures. We actually had a bunch of zebra as well, which is really cool. Couldn't close the distance on the zebra. Like, we did all kinds of attempts, moving around. The wind was changing, going. That was like a big clearing. And the funniest thing was, and I'd heard Fred tell a story about this before. But I, you know, I wasn't skeptical, but I hadn't seen it for myself. But the last thing that he tried on these zebra was, if you, and this is something that's crazy, I didn't know you could do this. This is like ninja level shit. Okay. But like, if you get on all fours and crawl along on the ground towards them and make really loud pig noises, like, and like grab grass and throw it loudly in there, and like just throw it around like you're just like a giant pig having a big old, like, I don't know, like burrowing around in the ground, like tearing grass and all kinds of shit. animals don't run away. They're like, whoa, what's going on over there? And they're like,
Yeah,
actually come in. Like
that's
they
so funny.
actually come closer. So yeah, the last ditch thing we tried was doing that with these zebra, and he started doing it in front of me, and I couldn't believe it. These zebra like coming in like 70, 60, or like maybe more like 80, 70, like 65,
Yeah,
60, like just getting in closer and closer, just this weird like, oh, what's going on over there? What's going like just didn't understand what they were looking at. And
yeah.
admittedly, I also got very excited having heard that story the night before and decided to start doing my own dramatic representation of a pig on the ground.
Probably not
Was
quite as good as
like
Fred's.
throwing grass in the air, like this is great. I was like having a moment, and at that moment, then Fred like looked around at me and was like, "You concentrate on shooting the animal. I'll be the pig." Like, oh, sorry, Fred. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. But I
but I think,
believe it, man. I believe it. Here's something that happened to me literally like 3 days ago, and it is not wild pig and kudu or zebra in Africa. So in Texas, right, we have whitetail everywhere.
yeah, yeah,
And at any given moment, there's 10 to 15 in my yard. And so we have a giant cat, like Maine Coon, largest domestic breed of cat. The cat weighs like 30 something pounds.
wow,
Not fat, just a big old cat. And he ran past my wife, ran past me, runs into the yard and into our neighbor's yard. And he just sits down. And these 15 deer are like, what is that? And
huh.
they start to do what whitetail do, the and they're
Yeah,
stomping
yeah,
and they're
yeah,
huffing
yeah.
and they're stomping, and he's just sitting there looking at them, and he kind of looks like he's going to start playing with them. And all of a sudden, all of these deer start coming in, and I'm just sitting there in my garage, just looking out here. And eventually, my cat gets tired. He runs off the other way, and they're like, "What was that?" And they all come in, and they realize, or I realize, maybe
Yeah,
they realize that I'm sitting there 10 feet from them, and there's like
yeah,
10 deer just walked right up to me because I wasn't moving, but the cat was enough for them to go like, "What the hell's going
yeah,
on over there?"
yeah.
So I believe your strategy. And I have a little video of all these deer basically chasing after my giant cat. So
Ah, yeah, like it's got to be a thing to try then, like in the future. I think, like,
yeah,
yeah, maybe it's this.
I
I
was
mean,
I
it's
was
not
telling my
exactly.
buddies, I'm like, hey, if we go whitetail this year, I'm bringing my cat. Like that's all there is to it. I'm just gonna throw him out of the blind. We're gonna see what happens. Maybe we'll get lucky.
Yeah. So
Oh
yeah, I
man.
mean that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I guess like I've done a bit of turkey hunting and stuff since then, but yeah, that was like a major kind of turning point of realizing what's possible. And
Yeah.
yeah, I would definitely recommend like if you ever get a chance to get over to South Africa and want a bow hunt, then Fred, yeah, I mean I can always introduce you, dude. Like,
Yeah. I think you actually already did. So I'm gonna try and
oh
get
no, you're
Fred.
right. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
that's fine. No, I
pretty
need to
young,
reach
right?
back out to Fred because he sent me a little voicemail and God, it couldn't sounded like a friendlier guy. So now that I know that he does such good pig impressions, I can't wait to talk to him, man.
If for anything for that, yeah.
Absolutely. But Robin, man, we've been talking for a few hours now, and this has been awesome. But I know you have a turkey story for me. Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up with the turkey story. You said it was kind of silly, so go for it, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay, yeah. So I have been like it's turkey season right now in California, so I've been having fun running around with a bow. Have had a bit of success, so that was good. Managed to get like a nice bird 10 days ago, like a 22 pound, I think about 22 pound turkey, which around here apparently is pretty big.
Yeah.
I don't have
What do
much
you guys
experience.
got out there? Rios?
Oh, dude, I don't know. Turkeys.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I should ask people who are more knowledgeable than me. Probably should have done that before coming on.
That's all
But
right. I
yeah,
can't
I'm
tell the
not,
difference. If I kill a turkey, it's a turkey, but apparently there's types.
there's
So
yeah, there's nuances. Um, yeah, so yeah, I got one, and yeah, the thing I got a shot on that turkey, and it then just like kamikaze straight off a canyon down. There seems to be a recurring theme here. Um, Straight down into like a river. To my panic, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to. Hopefully, with all the rain that's been happening now, I guess it's snow
yeah.
for other people. I thought that turkey was going to wash away, but actually, I managed to get down. But I had to actually go down probably like 50 yards further downstream and then like undress and wade all the way up to get the bird. Oh, that was very cold water. So yeah, I
I
think it was
bet,
like
man.
10 minutes I was like maneuvering through that. I had no sensation in my feet or legs. So yeah, that was definitely.
That's funny. I'll tell you a quick turkey story.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a successful turkey hunt, but we found this spot. We went one day and we heard gobbles all morning. We heard them in the evening. We saw a bunch of sign. We just couldn't pull them off of private into the public area when we were actually there. The next weekend we go back and it had rained for a few days. And this spot, you kind of drop down and you just cross over a really mild creek, like nothing. I mean, it's a river, but at the point where you cross it, it feels like a creek. There's a board. You just walk right across. It's nothing. But apparently it's the runoff for the entire area. And this is Colorado, pretty steep hills. So all of that moisture came right down into that canyon and we couldn't get across.
Really?
And so we're like, well, what do we do? And so like we just spent, so we were there hours before sunup and it took us a few hours to finally find a log. And in retrospect, this was the dumbest thing I've ever done. But it's like a 15 feet across. Yeah. And it's probably the only spot where the water is like actually really deep and rushing. And like my buddy and I are trying to cross over. I don't think we were using our bows. I think we had shotguns. So we're trying to like get across. We've got our big bags on. Everything's wet and slippery. And like we're trying to get across and like he gets across okay. And then I get across barely. And then it turns out we're now on an island. So like we didn't solve our problem at all. Like so we go to the other side of the island. And we're trying to. It's much safer on this side. The water's not rushing quite as far. And of course, my buddy falls in. He's waist deep. First thing in the morning, basically snow runoff. It was just a miserable experience. But again, we didn't even see any turkeys that day. But on the way home, I'm like, why did we do this? Like, this is the dumbest thing we could have done. We could easily die here. We're like throwing our shotguns to each other to try and take all of it, so we're not going across this log again with like all this extra weight. It was just, turkeys, man, they're dumb.
Yeah,
There's
but
everything about them, but they're fun.
They are, and when it does work out, it's great. But they'll punish you.
For sure.
I guess like the last thing today, I just got back from turkey hunting. Bit of a silly one, I guess. It wasn't successful, sadly. It could have so easily been successful. My own stupidity. I got to a really good spot. I was high up on a ridge, perfect. Everything felt good. I like let out a call. No, actually, I put out my meeps, like did my, whatever. And then immediately, bam, gobble straight back. I'm like, oh shit, it's been a while. Like I haven't heard any gobbles, but this one sounds keen. Again, straight back. Bam, gobble straight back. Okay, I'm like, okay, this is sounding good. I think it's going to happen. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to set up, pull out like a decoy, put it up just on the edge of the ridge line and everything. Just waiting. Probably by this point, it's been 3 or 4 minutes. I like, okay, I'm just going to test once more. Just give it like another few meeps. Bam, again, straight away. But it sounds to me like the gobble is the same distance. So I'm like, okay, it sounds like, I don't know, they may be like 200 yards away,
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh shit, this thing's coming, like you get a sense of like how quick it's coming. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get in place. I'm going to wait. Maybe they'll show up. My instant thought was like, oh, maybe they're not coming then. But I then sat there for a moment and then was like, oh, I don't know if this position's good. Like where I think they're going to come out, the turkeys, the gobbler, there was like a ridge line fire road, right? And so I could see the fire road going away from me, and I thought, okay, turkeys are going to come over just a little hilltop, just 40 yards behind where the decoy is. But shit, the decoy is kind of almost in line with where I am. Now, what I've heard is that like if you're right behind where the decoy is, you're kind of in the line of sight. So if you move a whisker,
bust.
They're gonna bust you, So I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna move. Like. So I move across to the left and I get over there and I'm like, oh, fuck, this is like also in bright sunlight. This is not feeling good either. I'm like, okay, right, well, I still feel like I have time. They didn't even respond. Like, it didn't sound like they'd moved in that time. So I'm like, I know. Okay, I need a piss as well. I'm just going to have a quick piss. So I like put my bow down, like, okay, pretty casual. And then I just immediately hear like the clucking of turkeys approaching. As soon as I'm there, like,
course.
Steel is broken. I hear clucking and I like see a turkey's head pop up over exactly where I thought they were going to come out on that fire road. Bump, 40 yards away. And I'm like there in a ghillie jacket, like, and camo on my face, and it must just look like a bush is having a piss in just to the side of the road. But the thing was looking at me, but it wasn't quite spooked yet. But I'm like in this situation where like fuck, like my bow is on the ground and my dick is in my hand, and that is what that is what's going on right now. I'm like, oh fuck, I really screwed the pooch on this one. But I just waited, like it didn't seem bothered, but it like kind of went behind a tree, and I quickly like dropped down like to get to my bow. But what I didn't know is there was another turkey just in the bushes behind it, and that one immediately started like putting, and they were kind of like, oh, something's up now. So I was like, then on the ground, like busted, and they ran.
That's so funny, man. I have also been turkey hunting and been caught pissing. But I did actually kill the turkey. I've told this story before. I'll tell you the quicker version.
Okay.
But it was my first turkey, and it was like 4 days, Western Colorado. This guy he's my turkey hunting mentor, basically. Found him on Facebook, of all places. But we hunted hard, like as hard as I've hunted for any elk hunt I've ever hunted in my life. So we're going for it. And it's our last day. And we find it's like it's four turkeys, two toms, two hens, and they're just having fun. They're just like, gobbling like crazy and clucking and purring. And we try and set up decoys and call them in, but they're like, why would we go over there? We got everything we need over here. We got our foursome. So I'm like, the entire 4 days, I'm like, hey, should I crawl over to these turkeys as we're trying to call them in? And the guy's like, no, just wait here. And so this time I look at him and he's like, all right, time to start crawling. So I'm like, shit. So I drop down and I'm doing the crawl that you're talking about earlier with on the knees and the elbows, crawling around with my shotgun. I'm crawling over elk shit and mule deer shit and over barbed wire fences. And I get to them. And of course, as soon as I clear this brush that's in between us and them, they just start going south of me. And I'm like, all right, well, let's keep crawling. So I'm crawling, but I can't crawl as fast as these turkeys can walk. So all of a sudden I'm getting a little higher and I'm starting to do a little bit of a bigger, more of a hunched over walk. And I'm going, and I crawled probably 100 yards, and I'm like 200 yards downhill from these things. And all of a sudden I spook them, and I'm like, shit. And like the three birds just take off and they fly away. And I'm like, I didn't even know turkeys could fly. Who knew? Either way, I've been crawling for like 45 minutes. So I just get up, stand up in that spot and just start peeing. And next thing I know, the ones that took off are gobbling. And I'm like, what? And then I hear the other one gobble. I didn't know 3 had flown away. And the big bird was still doing his thing. So he was just, strutting away, having fun, thinking the other turkeys are right behind him. But when they gobbled, he was like, holy shit. And so he just stood up and turned around and started walking right back down the ridgeline. So I'm like, whoa, get that away. I'm trying to put my pecker away. And and we're in a big burn area, so there's no cover. So I just sort of like lean up on this tree, and I'm like, I'm kind of covered. And if I just sit like this, he'll eventually walk right in front of my shotgun. So I'm sitting there and I wait, and boom, I dropped the biggest of the birds because the other ones called him over for me. But like you said, I had my gun on the ground, I was holding my pecker, and I thought all hope was lost. And then I'm like trying to find my buddy. As it turns out, he was calling for me behind me. And when I went to go find him, he was nowhere to be found. What he could actually see us all. And so he'd actually walked to where they were walking and was waiting behind like some bush, just waiting to ambush them. So like they were dead, apparently, according to him. But yeah, either way, it was a really fun hunt. And it's not often you see animals with your Johnson out and you actually have any luck. So I'm pretty proud of that one.
Exactly. Yeah. Show one weapon, then show them the other one.
Exactly. Just hope they don't think it's some kind of little worm or something.
Hi,
Robin.
We're getting closer.
Yeah, right. Well, this has been fun, man. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm glad Preston connected us. I don't know if you have anything that you want to share with the people, anything you want to send them to. Otherwise, you can just fade away into the mist.
I don't have a whole bunch of social media presence or anything, but actually, I think what would be good is I think my friend Fred, who I was hunting with, who I'm guessing you'll potentially have a chat with soon, but I'd love to give his Instagram. As I said before, he's a professional hunter, hunting guide over in South Africa. So if you guys ever want to go have like a proper authentic free range bow hunt in the Eastern Cape, then yeah, I would recommend. I wrote it down here somewhere. What's his? I mean, I guess I don't know if it's like a show notes thing. I could just say now. It's
Yeah. No, I mean, if you have it now, go ahead and say it, and I'll put it in
yeah,
the show notes as well.
all lowercase. Frederick, Frederic, like underscore Hammer, Hammer. Yeah, it's actually his surname, so it's a pretty cool surname.
Yeah, right.
Frederick Hammer.
Pulling him up right now. Frederick Hammer.
Would definitely recommend. Very high. If anything, to learn a bunch as well. That's the thing that was most amazing. Right. Apart from some very cool animals. Yeah. Cool. Thanks very much for having me, Michael.
Yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. And the way that you're going after it and the amount of opportunities you're getting, I feel like I can reach out to you every 6 months and you'll have like a bucket of new stories for me, man. So
I feel like I maybe like gave you too much to start with, but yeah, I'll have to go get some more.
Yeah, man, that's the plan. Cool. Thank you again, Robin. I appreciate it to the listeners out there. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to Robin's stories as much as I did. So thanks again, Robin.
Awesome. Thanks very much for having me.
All right, folks, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. I want to thank, of course, Robin for coming on and sharing his adventures with us. He's got a super unique story, being a newer hunter, and then, of course, the do-it-yourself in South Africa. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to these stories as much as I did having the conversation with Robin. That being said, check out the show notes. We've got a couple of links down there for you for the guides that he specifically talked about in South Africa, if that's something you're interested in. Also, make sure you follow us and share the podcast with literally everybody you know. It's the only way that we're going to grow. And it's the only way that we're going to get more crazy stories like the ones Robin told for us today. So that's it, guys. Thanks again. Robin, thank you, man. I really do appreciate it. Now, everybody, get out there and make some stories of your own. Thank you.